When you say faith is rational and evidence-based, I mean, if that were true, it wouldn't need to be faith, would it? I mean, if there were evidence for it.
Now, that is totally counterintuitive. It's counterintuitive to me. It's counterintuitive to you. It's counterintuitive to Stephen Meyer.
This video features two important moments from the public career of Richard Dawkins. The first one's from 2007. The second one is from just a few weeks ago. They both deal with the topic of faith, and together they unfold an important clue to understanding the atheist worldview. I hope this video helps you think better and also helps you have better conversations, regardless of what your current beliefs are about God. So enjoy. Also, one other thing, shout out to Matthew Middleberg, who helped me break it down. Let's get into this.
When you say faith is rational and evidence-based, I mean, if that were true, it wouldn't need to be faith, would it? I mean, if there were evidence for it, why would you need to call it faith? You'd say just evidence. And when you said that faith in relativity, in Einstein's theory of relativity, is evidence-based, that of course it is. But the evidence is all important. I mean, Einstein's predictions fit in with observed fact and with a whole body of theory, whereas we only need to use the word faith when there isn't any evidence.
No, not at all. I presume you've got faith in your wife. Is there any evidence for that? On
Yes,
which
plenty.
you base it? Yes.
Plenty of evidence. Let's generalize it. Never mind about my wife. Let's generalize it.
It's the same with mine, Richard. It's the same with mine.
Let's say that in general, how do we know that somebody loves us? Okay?
Yes.
You can use a word faith for that if you like, but it's not the right use of the word. Because,
Oh, it is.
Because you know why, you know your wife loves you because of all sorts of little signs, little catches in the voice, little looks in the eye. That's the evidence that it.
Yes,
that's
that's
evidence.
right.
That's perfectly good evidence. That's not faith.
Yes, it is.
Well, okay, then we're coming down to pure semantics.
I think you've been influenced too much by Kant, you see.
Not explicitly, I have to say. Okay, let's go on.
So this is pretty interesting, just this, the way that he is defining faith. And I think I have just a little bit of sympathy for him on this, because there have been Christians who have, when asked, why do you believe? They just say, well, I have faith. And so they sort of articulate the reason why they believe is that they have faith. And so it's just sort of this decision of the will, Indiana Jones stepping out onto the invisible bridge, sort of blind leap kind of thing.
It's a leap of faith.
It's just that's not how any philosopher of religion, any theologian has ever defined faith. And that's what Lennox is pointing out here is faith is just choosing to trust. It's choosing to put your trust in an idea or in a person. So do you have faith in your wife? Yes. Why? Because you have good reasons for it. And in the same way, we can have reasons why we believe in Christianity. And in fact, we have to have reasons. And no one believes without a reason. Even the people that say, oh, the reason I have faith is, or the reason I believe is I have faith. Well, even that person may have a real, genuine relationship with God, and that is their reason.
Now let's add another layer to this. Zooming forward to the present day, to literally as of the time of the recording of this video, like 2 days ago, when the very same Richard Dawkins went on to Piers Morgan's program. And let's watch this clip now. And I guess I'll just a little bit spoil the tea to say I think one of two things are possible. It's either a huge contradiction or he's changed his tune.
But when you go back to the very start, what is there before that? And that, I think I asked you last time, and Professor Meyer brought that up again as being the flaw in your position, which is what is there before it starts? What is nothing?
This is a question for a physicist, not a biologist, but what I would answer to Professor Meyer is that we need to explain complexity in terms of simplicity. And of course it's true that I cannot say what was there before the Big Bang. Physicists sometimes tell us that the word before doesn't even mean anything before the Big Bang. But whatever it was, it
but it
got to be
has to,
simple.
doesn't it?
You cannot suddenly invoke...
Doesn't it have to? I mean,
I didn't hear that.
someone as logical as you are, and I believe you are, you think about this all very logically. A logical mind surely has to appreciate that before the Big Bang, there has to have been something before then. Otherwise, what is nothing?
A physicist will tell you that
Yeah, but what do you tell me?
I'm trying to tell you what a physicist would say first of all. They would say that you cannot use the word before for the Big Bang. Time began at the Big Bang. There was no before the Big Bang. I know it's contrary to common sense. Physicists don't necessarily deal with common sense.
Well, it makes no sense, does it? And that's what I mean. I think you're a logical man. That cannot make sense to you. The idea that you're not even allowed to use the word before the Big Bang, when every part of both of our brains tells us that that's obviously nonsensical, doesn't that make you think again?
We are not physicists. I, like you, am completely baffled by what physicists say to me, which is that you cannot use the word before for before the Big Bang. Time itself began at the Big Bang. Now that is totally counterintuitive. It's counterintuitive to me, it's counterintuitive to you, it's counterintuitive to Stephen Meyer, but we are not physicists. And you need to talk to a physicist. Talk to a physicist about that. And they will tell you that you cannot use the word before for the Big Bang.
Yeah, but you think that's as preposterous as I do.
I do because I'm not a physicist.
He's literally saying, I don't understand the logic of this at all. This flies against my reason. This flies against my common sense. But physicists say so, and therefore I believe.
Yeah. It really reminds me, C.S. Lewis described his life before he became a Christian, and he said this: "You'll understand that my atheism was inevitably based on what I believed to be the findings of science, and those findings, not being a scientist, I had to take on trust, in fact, on authority." And so he just believed these scientists who said, oh yeah, science has replaced God. And sort of what Dawkins is doing here, he's just trusting these physicists who, potentially he's friends with them. He has this interpersonal friendship with them, and he's just choosing to trust them. And yet he claims that this is some sort of objective thing instead of the fact that he's having faith. He's having faith in these physicists.
And this gets into the whole question around, which we could go on far too long on this, but what really is religious belief as opposed to anything else? I don't know. Actually, I'm very curious genuinely to hear your thoughts on this, because my view is that literally everyone has some reason for living, some worldview, for lack of a better word, that they're operating out of, a way of orienting your life, of constructing meaning in your life. And basically religion is like a subcategory of that reason for living broader umbrella term. Your worldview, and some worldviews are religious, but I would say secular humanism is also a worldview. And so, and here I look at this as an example where faith is at play within basically the secular humanist worldview. So the point that I'm making is that I think that the playing field, if you will, is totally equal. It's not like there's faith in the religious arena and none of it in the broader arena. I think that faith, rightly understood, is buttered equally over the entire bread.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think these philosophical worldviews, these propositions, have implications for the ways that we live our lives. You might start with this kind of basic question of, does God exist, yes or no? And depending on how you answer that question, then you have to ask additional questions, and you build this worldview from that. So if the answer is no, well, the implication is, well, if there is no God, then there is no moral authority, and nothing's truly right and wrong. And yes, I might want to live a moral life in order to reap the benefits of society, but I might not as well. Versus on the other side, if God does exist, well, I need to know, what does he require of me, and can I enter into relationship with him? How can I know him? How can I have salvation? And so these things go beyond just a philosophical proposition, but it affects the way that we live our lives, and it affects sort of the ways that we go about everything. And you can't absolutely prove it one way or another. So these worldviews do take a step of faith. But it's a step. It's a reasoned step. It's a step with evidence. It's a step that's been rationally considered. I like to put it as a thought experiment. You wake up and you're in a plane, and you hear the pilot say, the plane's going down. the Mayday, Mayday, plane's going down, and you see a wall in front of you of parachutes. And there's all these different parachutes, and one of them says Islam, one of them says, Christianity, one of them says, all these different religions. And you have a choice to make here, a real choice. Are you going to stay on the plane, which is essentially either agnosticism or atheism, or are you going to take one of those parachutes and try it, see if it works, try it out? Maybe there's a way to even test it inside the airplane before you jump out and fully commit to it. But at some point, you're going to have to choose what you're going to do, and that choice is what we call faith.
If you enjoyed this conversation, you might also enjoy the Wisdom Society, a growing community of believers from around the world that meets weekly to discuss tough questions, to read scripture, and to pray. Within the Wisdom Society, there is also a book club where members are joined by the author of the book so that they can discuss the book directly with the author. Join today, support this channel, invest in yourself, grow in faith, connect with believers from around the world. Click the link in the description to find out more.